The couch is fine for you. You're not exactly contributing. That's what my cousin Danielle said as she tossed a blanket at me like I was a stray dog. The living room smelled faintly of jasmine candles and last night's pizza. The laughter from the back bedroom, the one I wasn't allowed to use, bubbled like champagne through the thin hallway walls. I stood there in my pajamas, holding my laptop and a half-empty glass of water, blinking at her like maybe I hadn't heard right. But I had. "You're serious?" I asked. She didn't even look up from her phone. "You should be grateful you even have somewhere to sleep. Rent's not cheap in Atlanta." That night, I slept on the couch. And the next morning, I made a decision that changed everything. My name is Sierra Monroe, and I never expected to be 31, single, and sleeping on a couch I didn't own in a house that felt less like a home and more like a verdict. Just 3 months earlier, I'd had my own one-bedroom apartment in a quieter corner of Atlanta. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. My walls, my furniture, my rules. But then came the layoff. I'd been working as a project manager for a digital agency. Nothing too glamorous, but I was good at it, organized, detail-oriented, always the one with a spreadsheet and backup plan. Until one Friday morning, a department-wide Zoom call changed all of that. Budget cuts. Downsizing. They said it wasn't personal, but when your whole future vanishes in a 3-minute speech, it feels personal. I packed up my apartment slowly, with the kind of heartbreak reserved for breakups and deaths. Each dish I wrapped reminded me of meals I'd cooked alone, or movie nights where I pretended I didn't care about the silence. I had no partner to lean on, no siblings nearby, just a few distant relatives and a dwindling savings account. That's when Danielle, my mom's sister's daughter, offered her place. "It's just temporary," she said, "until you're back on your feet." At the time, I was grateful. Danielle lived in a 2-bedroom rental house on the east side, not far from downtown. She shared it with her boyfriend Marcus and her older brother Trey. I'd known them since we were kids. Danielle and I had been close once. We spent summers together in Macon at Grandma Lillian's house. Back then, she was always the wild one, the loud one, the one with too much lip gloss and not enough patience. I was quieter. I read books, organized lemonade stands, made chore charts for fun. We lost touch in college. Life does that. The first week at her house was fine. I kept to myself, applied for jobs daily, and helped out where I could, washed dishes, tidied the living room, even cooked a few dinners. No one said thank you, but I didn't expect them to. I was the one who needed help. But the tone started to shift by the second week. They stayed up late drinking. I wore earplugs and curled into the corner of the couch, hugging my knees. The bathroom started locking mysteriously for long stretches, the toilet paper vanished overnight, and suddenly the house Wi-Fi glitched during my Zoom interviews. I started feeling invisible. One Thursday, Danielle burst into the living room and flopped onto the couch while I was working on a cover letter.
"Ugh.
This room smells like desperation," she said, then laughed like it was a joke. I laughed too, just to keep the peace. But something in me cracked. Later that night, I called Grandma Lillian. She didn't answer, but I left a voicemail. "You always told me kindness isn't a loan, it's a gift." I tried to believe that. But I'm starting to feel like I'm drowning in IOUs. Grandma had always been my anchor. A Southern woman of grit and grace, she taught me how to bake sweet potato pie and balance a checkbook before I turned 12. She used to say, "Baby, your dignity is like a pearl necklace. Don't let anyone yank it off just to see if it's real." I clung to those words now. Danielle's boyfriend Marcus had begun treating me like a ghost. He'd walk past me without a glance, even when I was in the kitchen making coffee. He and Trey would crack jokes about freeloaders just loud enough for me to hear. And then came the couch comment. That was the final thread. It wasn't just about sleeping arrangements. It was the way they said it. Like I didn't matter. Like I was furniture in their world, present, but not important. I started going for long walks in the evenings just to clear my head. There's something about the city lights reflecting in puddles that reminds you how fragile everything is, especially when you're trying not to cry in public. One night, I wandered into a small bookstore tucked between a laundromat and a soul food spot. The bell above the door jingled, and the smell of old paper wrapped around me like a blanket. It felt like refuge. I picked up a used copy of The Art of War. The irony wasn't lost on me. "Big fan of strategy?" the cashier asked. I smiled weakly. "Big fan of survival." The next morning, something changed. I woke up with a fire in my chest. Maybe it was the book. Maybe it was the voicemail Grandma finally returned at 2 a.m. "Sierra, don't let them break you, sugar. They can't define your worth. Not unless you let them." I looked around the living room. The chipped coffee table. The stained carpet. The couch where I now folded my dreams at night. And I whispered to myself, "This isn't where your story ends." I began researching. I started looking at rental prices, income-based housing, grants, freelance work, anything that could get me out. Then I remembered something. When I was 16, my dad had set up a small investment account for me. Nothing major, just a few $100s in a mutual fund. I hadn't touched it in years. I logged into the dusty account, expecting pennies. But over time, it had grown. A lot more than I expected. I had options. And that realization, that I wasn't stuck, was the first real breath I'd taken in weeks. That was the moment I stopped being a guest in someone else's story and started writing my own. For the next 2 weeks, I kept quiet. I still slept on the couch, still made my coffee silently in the mornings, still replied to job applications and sent follow-up emails as if my life depended on it, because, in a way, it did. But behind the scenes, I was building something. The investment account had more than I remembered, $16,742 to be exact. Not enough to retire on, but enough to start. I took a deep breath, transferred a chunk into my checking account, and did something bold. I scheduled a meeting with a local real estate agent. Her name was Carmen Steele, sharp as glass and warm as spring. "You're young," she said during our first meeting, narrowing her eyes at me across the cafe table. "But you've got fire." "I like that. What are we shopping for?" I hesitated. I want a living room." She laughed, confused. I smiled. Then I explained. I told her everything about Danielle, the couch, the humiliation. I didn't cry. I told it like a business pitch. And when I finished, she was nodding. "You want to buy your own place?" "I want to buy a place with a living room that no one can kick me out of." We toured 6 properties. 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, even a tiny duplex that smelled like rain and fresh paint. But the moment we walked into the 7th property, I knew. It was an older brick building on the edge of East Point. Sunlight streamed in through bay windows, lighting up the hardwood floors like they were telling me, "This is yours." The living room was massive, big enough for a sectional, a piano, a dance party, and still have room to breathe. There was even a fireplace. I ran my hand over the mantel and whispered, "Yes." The asking price was $89,000. A stretch, but doable. Between the investment funds, a small freelance contract I just landed, and a low-interest first-time homebuyer loan Carmen helped me secure, it wasn't just possible. It was happening. I signed the paperwork 3 weeks later. My name, in ink on the deed. Sierra Monroe, owner. I didn't tell Danielle. Not yet. I wanted the moment to land. So I waited. I kept sleeping on that couch, night after night, while knowing my name was on something real, something sacred, something that could never be yanked away again. And then came the perfect opportunity. Danielle threw a house party the following Friday. Some Instagram influencer she knew had hit 50K followers, and they decided to celebrate with cheap champagne and speakers that rattled the windows. I helped clean the kitchen beforehand. No one said thank you. No one noticed when I changed into jeans and a blazer and slipped out just before the guests arrived. I drove to my new place. Alone. Quietly. There, I lit a single candle in the middle of my new living room floor, sat on a throw pillow I brought from Danielle's couch, and called Grandma Lillian. She cried when I told her. "You bought a whole living room?" She laughed between sobs. "No, Grandma," I whispered. "I bought a whole house. But the living room? That's mine. That's the part that matters." She was silent for a moment. Then she said, "That couch was just the beginning, baby. Now look at you, you built your own seat at the table. The next morning, I returned to Danielle's with a plan. It was time for the reveal. Danielle was in the kitchen with Marcus and Trey, laughing about someone who had gotten evicted from an apartment down the block. "Oh, hey," she said without looking at me. "Can you grab more solo cups for tonight?" I didn't answer. Instead, I placed a manila folder on the counter in front of her. "What's this?" she asked. "Something I thought you might want to see before we talk again." She opened the folder lazily, then stopped. Her eyes scanned the bold letters across the top. Property deed for 21 Mackenzie Street, owner, Sierra Monroe. Marcus leaned over her shoulder. "Wait, you bought something?" I nodded slowly.
No, I didn't buy something.
"I bought everything I need. I won't be sleeping on your couch anymore. I have my own living room now." Danielle scoffed. "Wait, like a real house. Like hardwood floors, fireplace, washer-dryer hookups, and peace of mind." Trey laughed, confused. "Yo, she's serious?" I turned to him, calm and collected. "You tell me. You're standing there in a house you don't own, laughing at a woman who just bought hers." Danielle's mouth opened, then closed. She looked like she'd swallowed her own pride and was choking on it. I grabbed the last of my things from the living room, a duffel bag, my pillow, and my laptop. On my way out, I paused in the doorway. "For what it's worth," I said, "thanks for the couch. It reminded me exactly what I deserve." And then I left. No screaming, no drama, just my keys in my hand, my name on a deed, and my dignity fully intact. I thought leaving quietly would be the end of it. But people like Danielle don't take well to being outshined, especially not by someone they once thought they had power over. 2 days after I moved into my new home, I got a text from her. "Must be nice to suddenly play boss. Just remember who gave you a roof." No congratulations. No acknowledgement. Just a swipe of guilt disguised as grace. I didn't respond. Instead, I focused on building my new life. I bought a used but beautiful emerald green couch from a local thrift store. Symbolic, firm, mine. I laid down a cream rug, hung up string lights over the fireplace, and painted the walls in warm tones that made the space feel like a heartbeat. It wasn't just a living room. It was a resurrection. But peace, as I was learning, comes with a price, especially when it threatens someone else's control. A week later, Danielle showed up unannounced. I was wiping down the counters when I heard the knock. Sharp, unapologetic. I opened the door, and there she stood, arms crossed, expression tight. "This is cute," she said, stepping inside without waiting. "Very IKEA meets ego trip." I didn't rise to it. "Would you like some tea?" I asked instead. She blinked. "You're not serious." But I was. I poured her a cup and sat across from her in my new living room.
She didn't sit.
Just hovered like a storm cloud refusing to rain. "So, this is what you've been working on behind our backs?" she asked. "Not behind anyone's back," I said softly. "Just in my lane." Danielle scoffed. "You know, you could have said thank you for giving you a place to stay, a couch, food." "Danielle," I said carefully, "I did say thank you. Many times. I said it when I did your dishes. When I cleaned up after parties I wasn't invited to. When I tiptoed around your house like I didn't exist." She looked down, briefly, but pride snapped her back up. "You just think you're better now because you got a little paper and a house." "No," I said. "I think I'm better now because I remembered who I was. And I stopped letting people treat me like I wasn't worth more." For the first time, her eyes softened. Just a bit. "You embarrassed me," she whispered. I tilted my head.
"How?"
"By growing." She didn't answer, just looked around at the room that held everything she never thought I could have. And then, boom, the door burst open. Marcus walked in. "Yo," he said, scanning the room. "This where the queen's been hiding out?" His tone dripped with mockery, but his eyes couldn't hide the surprise. He looked around slowly, taking it in. Danielle said nothing. "You got lucky," Marcus said. "You know that, right?" "No," I replied, meeting his stare. "I got smart." There's a difference. He snorted. You still the same girl who begged for a place to sleep. And you're still the man living in a house under someone else's name. That hit him. I saw it. His jaw clenched, and he looked at Danielle, who suddenly seemed smaller, unsure of her place. Then the unexpected happened. Trey walked in. Apparently Danielle had texted the whole crew, maybe hoping for backup. But Trey didn't come in guns blazing. He looked tired. Y'all really gonna come here just to belittle her? He asked. She did what none of us thought to do. Maybe instead of mocking her, we should be taking notes. Danielle blinked. Excuse me? Trey turned to me. I'm proud of you, Sierra. You didn't scream, didn't throw a fit. You just handled your business. That's real. Marcus laughed. Man, you're switching sides now? No, Trey said. I'm just opening my eyes. Danielle looked like she'd been slapped. You were supposed to back me up, she hissed. Trey shrugged. I did, until I realized you weren't trying to help her. You were trying to control her. The silence that followed was heavy. I broke it. I'm not mad at any of you, I said. I'm just done playing a role I never signed up for. Danielle's voice trembled. You just cut us off like that?
No.
You cut me off. That night you threw the blanket and told me I wasn't contributing, you made it clear how you saw me. And I just chose to see myself differently. The words weren't meant to hurt, but truth usually stings when pride's in the way. Marcus shook his head and walked out. Danielle followed a second later, not saying a word. But Trey stayed behind. He looked at the couch, then at me. This yours? He asked. Every inch. He smiled. You did good, Sierra. That night I sat on that couch, my couch, and breathed in the silence like it was jazz. They had come expecting drama, but I gave them grace. And sometimes, grace is the loudest kind of power. The following week was unusually quiet. No more messages. No cryptic posts on social media. Danielle had gone silent, like a radio station out of range. And, honestly, I was okay with that. For the first time in a long time, my life wasn't orbiting someone else's moods. I woke up to sunlight streaming in through the bay windows. I cooked breakfast barefoot, humming to myself while eggs sizzled in the pan. I danced to old-school soul music in my pajamas and rearranged my living room furniture 3 times just because I could. Power doesn't always come with applause. Sometimes it's just the ability to stretch out on your own couch, knowing no one can yank the rug, literal or emotional, out from under you again. But it wasn't just about the furniture or the space.
It was about reclaiming myself.
I started freelance consulting again, just small gigs at first, helping small businesses streamline their project workflows, design better task systems, budget smarter. Turns out all those years managing other people's chaos had left me with skills people actually needed. By month's end, I landed a long-term client. It paid better than my last full-time job, and I could work from my living room, candle burning, playlist humming. Peace became part of my daily routine. One afternoon, while checking my emails with a mug of chai in hand, I got a knock at the door. I assumed it was a delivery. But when I opened it, it was Lisa. Lisa was Danielle's childhood best friend, always the quieter one, the peacemaker in their group. We'd spoken a few times during my couch days, mostly small talk in the kitchen or brief smiles in the hallway. But she'd always seemed observant. Sierra, she said, holding a plastic takeout container and an awkward smile. Hey. I stepped aside, surprised but not unfriendly. Lisa.
Hi.
Come in. She walked in slowly, scanning the room like it was some museum she'd read about but never visited. This place is beautiful, she said. It feels intentional. I smiled. It is. She handed me the container. Peach cobbler. From my mom. I blinked. Why? Lisa exhaled. Because she heard what happened. And because I think she always liked you better. We both laughed. She sat on the couch, legs tucked under her. I sat across from her. After a moment, she said, Danielle's going through it.
Not just about you.
Life in general. She's losing her grip on a lot of things she used to control. I'm sorry to hear that, I said honestly. Lisa studied me. You don't seem angry. I admitted. But anger is heavy. I needed to make space for better things. She nodded. I think she's jealous of you. She doesn't have to be. Lisa raised an eyebrow. I didn't win a lottery, I continued. I just made a decision. A small one. I decided I didn't want to beg for space anymore. Lisa leaned back. Do you think you'll ever forgive her? I didn't answer right away. Instead, I thought about all the little moments. The blanket toss. The whispered insults. The way she looked right through me even when I was standing in front of her. But I also thought of Grandma Lillian's words. Grace isn't weakness. It's proof you remember who raised you. I already have, I finally said. But forgiveness doesn't mean reunion. It just means I'm not dragging her shadow into my light. Lisa smiled. That's deep. Grandma wisdom, I said, grinning. Before she left, Lisa paused at the doorway. For what it's worth, she said, you inspired me. I've been thinking about going back to school. For interior design. You'd be great at it, I said. Let me know if you need help organizing your schedule. She hugged me, quickly, tightly, and was gone. That night, I sat in my living room and ate peach cobbler, alone but not lonely. The sweetness lingered on my tongue like a reminder. Life can be tender again, even after bitterness. In the weeks that followed, more shifts happened. I got a call from Trey, who decided to move out from Danielle's house. He said he realized he'd been coasting too long. He wanted to get his own place. Nothing fancy, he told me. Just something that feels mine. I gave him Carmen's number. One morning, while I was watering the tiny potted fern by the fireplace, I received a voice note from Danielle. I guess you really did it. Took me a while to realize. I was never mad at you. I was mad that you reminded me of everything I wasn't doing. Anyway, good luck, Sierra. For real. There was no apology. But I didn't need one. Her voice didn't carry venom anymore. Just tired honesty. And that in itself was healing. I didn't reply. Some chapters are best closed without footnotes. Instead, I poured my energy into planting roots. Literally. I started a small indoor herb garden by the window. Basil, rosemary, thyme. The room smelled like new beginnings. Every so often, I'd host small dinners. Friends, a few new clients, even Lisa once or twice. The living room filled with laughter that didn't sting, conversation that didn't tiptoe around egos. And me? I stayed centered. Grounded. Grateful. Because the girl they told to sleep on the couch had built a home where every inch spoke her name. A home that welcomed others, but never at the cost of herself. And that, to me, was the greatest revenge of all. I don't know what satisfaction really tastes like until I walk into my condo and breathe in the stillness of it.
No one talking over me.
No cousins disrespecting me. No makeshift bed in the living room. Just me, a glass of wine, and the view of the Atlanta skyline through 14-foot windows I paid for in full. The place looks almost unrecognizable from when I first walked through with Mr. Paxton, the agent who sold it to me. I took that soulless showroom apartment and made it mine. Velvet emerald sectional, where the couch used to be. Marble coffee table, custom walnut shelves filled with my favorite design books, and yes, the same hand-poured jasmine candles Danielle used to burn. I bought them on purpose. Little trophies. Markers of what I outgrew. 3 months after I closed on the unit, I threw a party. Not for anyone else.
Just for me.
But word got around. That's the funny thing about family. They ignore you when you're down but keep you in their sights once you rise. Danielle showed up at my door a week after I posted a reel of my new space on Instagram. She brought a gift, a bottle of wine, and an insincere smile. Hey, stranger. She chirped like we were best friends from college. Heard you've been doing big things. Mind if I come in? I stepped aside, slowly.
Sure.
Why not? She looked around the living room like she couldn't quite believe it. This is yours, she asked. Yup, I said, sitting comfortably on the $6,000 couch she once forced me to sleep on the cousin discount version of. Her eyes scanned the space, the furniture, the open kitchen with quartz countertops. Her voice got softer.
Wow.
I mean, how did you even afford all this? I work hard. A pause. And I built something that matters. Something that can't be taken away from me. Something no one else paid for. She had the decency to look embarrassed for a second. But then came the real reason she came. So, funny story, she began, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. My lease is up next month, and the new place I applied to got delayed. Do you think I could crash here for a few days? I smiled. Not a cruel smile. Just calm. Almost sympathetic. You know, I said, walking toward the built-in bar, I actually only have the living room set up as sleeping space. The bedroom's under renovation. She laughed awkwardly. The living room is fine. You know me, I'm chill. I poured myself a drink. It's funny. That's exactly what you said to me the night you made me sleep on the couch. The air between us thickened. Danielle's mouth opened like she had something to say, but I cut her off. You didn't just give me a couch that night. You gave me motivation. You gave me a reason to stop asking for space in other people's lives and start creating my own. I'll always thank you for that. She stood there, stunned. I walked her to the door, drink still in hand. But unfortunately, I added gently, this couch is no longer open for guests. I bought the living room, and everything in it. And with that, I closed the door. Not out of spite, not to be dramatic, but because the girl who once slept on a couch out of desperation was gone. I stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, watching the lights of the city blink like stars on Earth. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even smug. I was full.
Free.
And finally home.